Good afternoon. I am traveling us into today's Finance Committee meeting. It is 12:01 p.m. on Monday, October 20th. I believe we start with calling the roll in committees.
Green.
Present.
Zimmerman. Avalos. Novick.
Here.
Pertogini.
Here. And Christopher, could you please read our rules of order and decorum?
Welcome to the meeting of the Finance Committee. To testify before this committee in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance to the committee agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda/finance-committee or by calling 311. Information on engaging with the committee can be found at this link. Registration for virtual testimony closes 1 hour prior to the meeting. In-person testifiers must sign up before the agenda item is heard. If public testimony will be taken on an item, individuals may testify for 3 minutes unless the chair states otherwise. Your microphone will be muted when your time is over. The chair preserves order. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or committee deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, the committee may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. If you're a lobbyist, identify the organization you represent, and virtual testifiers should unmute themselves when the clerk calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Colleagues, the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. And with only 3 of us here, can we do that by unanimous consent?
I believe you've met quorum, so yes, you can.
Okay.
But let me read it into the order first.
Perfect.
Item 1, August 11th, 2025 through September 22nd, 2025, Finance Committee minutes.
Colleagues, I would like us to approve this by unanimous consent. Is there any opposition? Okay, seeing none, why don't we continue? And clerk, could you please call the second item on the agenda for us?
Item 2, adopt the fiscal year 2025-26 fall supplemental budget and make other budget-related changes.
And colleagues, per direction from our chair, we're going to take this agenda item slightly out of order compared to usual and start with public testimony, and then move to our presentation from our CFO and budget staff.
We have 5 people signed up for public testimony. First is Loretta Smith, followed by Edward Azil.
Councillor Smith, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. Good morning, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Finance Committee. My name is Loretta Smith, and I am a District 1 counselor representing East Portland, and it is great to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to join briefly today for the reasons I will shortly share. I asked the committee to postpone the adoption of this ordinance and go into the full committee. My staff and I spent a few hours last Friday reviewing the exhibits and presentation provided for this meeting, as well as the budget memo sent out last week. We ended up with more questions than we started with, and after continuing to pore over all these documents, I have about 100 more questions. We were not able to have a work session before you all had this vote, and I think it's appropriate to have the work session first before it comes to your committee. And this tells me that there has not been enough time for any of us on City Council to review and understand the 7 different exhibits as well as the TAO summary memo, all of which were shared last Thursday afternoon. I have many questions, but I'll provide you with just an example. On page 8 of the presentation, Prosper Portland has been assigned $4.2 million in encumbrance carryover. Why? I heard this request is due to some unpaid invoices from previous fiscal years, but that is not a sufficient enough answer. In the fund summary, it is said that Prosper is paying for bills over previous fiscal years. Why did they not pay for those bills in those invoices in the previous fiscal years? I would also ask the same questions about the 5 other encumbrance carryover listed in the table. And as a broader question, what did the city budget office use as the cutoff date for determining encumbrance carryovers? Was it the end of July, the end of August, the middle of August, or some other date? I also have some questions about the aspect of the TAL and the city budget overall. I would still like to see information about any remaining ARPA funds, how those funds have been properly identified and desegregated in the TAL. Why were the financial outcomes of various labor contract negotiation effects not put into the contingency prior to this? Today's Exhibit 3 states the Transportation Fund has about $52 million in recommended adjustments. What are those adjustments for, and where did the money come from for the $52 million? I believe the city administrator issued directives last spring, perhaps as early as February, telling us to stop spending funds due to budget projects. If the Bureau constrained spending a few months before the end of last year, why does the TAL contain so many encumbrances and carryovers? It has no contracts available for us to look at to see what that looks like. Thank you so much, Finance Committee, for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Counselor. We appreciate hearing that.
Thank you.
Please go right ahead.
Ready?
We are ready. Go right ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to address you. Point out a few things that as a constituent, I'm a homeowner. I live at the neighborhood around the intersection of Halsey and 122nd. I have experience in budgeting and more so in the fulfillment of projects that are budgeted. And I see some problems, have seen problems that I'd like to bring to your attention. Several years ago, a couple years ago, Halsey, a stretch of Halsey was blacktopped, repaved, and new safety stripes and road paintings done for safety purposes. Not long after that project was completed, the city sent out a crew that tore up the safety strips at the intersection closest to where I live and reapplied new safety strips. They were only about 12 inches or so different from the original stripes that were put down. I understand that highways, roadways have lives. Put down a good blacktop, put it down properly, and you can get 20 years of service out of it. Well, it's only been a couple years, and the areas that were ripped up by the safety stripes in order to move them 12 inches are now without a surface and are now deteriorating to the point where they're causing potholes in the road surface. So this error, whoever was in charge of this project, whoever was the supervisor for this project, somehow should be held accountable for shortening the life of 10, 15, 20-year blacktop to 5 years. It's starting to fall apart. Last week, the exact same situation happened a block away on 122nd Street, where the safety stripes were ripped off and new stripes applied, once again, a short distance, just 12 inches, 18 inches away from where the original stripes were put. That was a brand new blacktop. Now it's got a 5-year life cycle where it's going to have potholes where the surface was ripped off. I understand that a year or so ago that an intersection down Halsey was improved, made safety for pedestrians or bicyclists or handicapped or something, and found out that not long afterwards, after it was a success, that it was the wrong intersection. That's a lot of money. If that's the way projects are handled, then we're in trouble. And it's your job to fix it, to monitor it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Vice Chair, appreciate you getting this started while I sat in the middle of one of those projects. Apologies to everybody for my tardiness. Is there any other public testimony, Clerk?
Yes, next up we have Lynn Felton, followed by Aaron Manning.
Thank you.
You may both come up to the dais.
Please come here and listen.
Yeah, I don't have any more comments
No
today.
comment today.
You can go ahead and get started. Just introduce yourself.
Sure.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Chair Zimmerman, Madam Vice Chair and councilors, Lynn Felton, District 1 resident. I'm before you today to advocate for Councilor Smith's intended proposal of funding enhanced service districts in Gateway and Park Rose. When traveling Gateway and Park Rose, I often think of that Pretenders song, you know, that, hey, ho, where'd you go, Ohio? Instead, Park Rose Gateway. The Fred Meyer's closing at Gateway is just the latest. Longtime residents will tell you the Safeway left, Target left, Keno's, Thriftway, small insurance businesses, family restaurants, bakeries, even the chapel where we might go to bury our dead. All gone and shuttered, never to come back. Repeatedly, choices have been made by previous city councils on the economic makeup of Outer East Portland. Somehow we became that closet in your home where you really hope the neighbors don't open as you escort them into the living room that you've spent like 3 days cleaning. Within a half mile of Gateway Shopping Center, so many solutions. Cascadia Health, Mental Health Clinic, Fora Health Treatment Center, Central City Concern Blackburn, Central City Concern River Haven, Do Good Multnomah Roseway Veteran Shelter, Join Day Center, Cherry Hill Hotel Day Center, another 82nd and Halsey Day Center by Multnomah County, Portland Rescue Mission, The Harbor, and Shepherd's Door. Last budget cycle, $1 million for Fora Health Treatment Center in Gateway. Over the last 20 years, hundreds of 0 to 60% AMI rental units built. All while we watch the Pearl boom, Slabtown flourish, multiple city agencies work on the Montgomery Park Action Plan and the OMSI District Plan as they rose and came to fruition. I look at the beautiful $2 billion rebuild at PDX, then drive Park Rose, and I wonder, where's the shared prosperity? The Portland Development Commission's urban renewal area of Airport Way, Cascade Station, for years lined the city coffers as businesses in Park Rose and Gateway withered. Park Rose Gateway should be the start of the Portland experience for travelers, not some mystery stop on Max. It should be a place for Portlanders to come visit, not that Portland they travel through when going to the airport or Costco. The shrugging and pretending that it is just that Portland needs to stop. We heard loud and clear when the Gateway Fred Meyer closed that, thank goodness it wasn't the stadium Fred Meyer's. I know the money is tight, and it is only going to get tighter. But Outer East Portland has to be part of Portland's economic recovery story. Please consider supporting Councilor Smith's ESD funding proposal. It would be a start. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other two people who originally were signed up have decided not to testify, so that ends public testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For all those that came today, we appreciate it. With that, Clerk, can we go to item number 1?
We've already completed.
Did we already do that?
Item number
Okay.
1. We're in the middle of item number 2.
Okay, there we go. If we could go ahead and bring the staff up for the presentation, that would be great. Thanks. All right, Jonas, help me get on task here and on time.
Thank you.
That way I can fake it a little bit later.
Great. We'll try to get back on schedule here. Thank you, committee, for the time. Mostly today, you're going to hear from Ruth and folks in the city budget office about the fall TAO. This item is sort of the moment that we come to committee, so we can get on to council agenda. I do want to just quickly acknowledge the councilors' questions, and thank you for highlighting those. The fall technical adjustment ordinance is a very technical document. document that does a lot of things. That is, it is a lot. And so appreciate that the memo that's published has a lot of information, does produce a lot of questions. We're here today to start to answer those questions. And I think you'll hear from Ruth on at least a couple of the items that were specifically acknowledged in the testimony. Also, as I think was noted, we will have a full work session with council on Wednesday, where we'll continue this discussion. And then we do still have 2 weeks to have additional briefings and educational moments, whatever's necessary. CBO and myself are happy to facilitate any of those conversations so that before the item comes to council on November 5th, we have a maximum opportunity to share that information. So just wanted to tee that up real quick. I think we've only got a few minutes, kind of quick presentation, recognizing we're going to go through this again in 2 days with full council. So with that, I'll hand to Ruth to talk about what the TAO is and what it does.
Great. Ruth Levine, today's budget director, and Anthony Locks here with me will take some of the presentation. So I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly, leave time for questions. So what is the Fall TAO? Why are we here? So the main purpose of the Fall TAO is to reconcile the budgeted beginning fund balances with the audited ending fund balance of the prior fiscal year. What is that? We budget a certain amount of beginning fund balance, the amount that carries from one year into the next, in the adopted budget, and then we sort of know we are going to be wrong for various reasons that I'll talk a little bit about, and so we have to true those up. You can't use ending fund balance for anything, so in order for it to be usable, council needs to appropriate it. So that's the main purpose of why we're here. In addition, there are a series of technical adjustments that have to happen, and then there are also some policy decisions that that council will have to make as part of this process. And I do just want to recognize, first of all, until this year, we had this process was known as the budget monitoring process, the fall bump. We've changed that in part due to sort of changing circumstances and to try to convey that this is a largely technical process. So this is now the technical adjustment ordinance. And we are not going to be allocating money, unfortunately, as we were able to do the prior, during the prior fiscal years. And I'll talk a bit about why that is. But I did just want to recognize for folks who are familiar with the old process that this is a bit different, but the underlying purpose is fundamentally the same, is to make those technical adjustments. So I think the main reason why this year's fall technical adjustment ordinance is the resources are lower than anticipated is due to business license tax. So you can see on this slide, this is the business license tax revenue. And on Wednesday at the full council work session, Peter, the city economist, will spend a long time on business license tax. So he's here to answer questions today, but we're not going to go into depth on it just for time here today. But we have lots of time set aside on Wednesday for that. So this basically is just to say that business license tax came in $12.7 million below the April forecast. And the memo does talk a little bit about why that was, and essentially boils down to a lot of uncertainty around tariffs that were introduced in April of this year. The other piece of ending fund balance, so the ending fund balance, I think of it as like a bucket that catches all the bits and pieces that are left at the end of the budget year. The revenue is part of that, the difference between what we thought the revenue would be and what the revenue turns out to be. And then the other side of it is expenditures. And so there's certain there's underspending between what was budgeted, even in the spring revised budget, and what the actuals ended up being. Much of that is due to encumbrances, which we will talk more about in this process, but this graphic just shows you what underspending has been in the prior years. You can see that it was particularly large in the post-pandemic years. That's, there was a lot of one-time moving through the system, and so folks didn't spend through it all the way. I will note also on this last year that there were a couple of new things that were stood up in the first year. One of the big ones is the Office of Community-Based Police Accountability. So that alone had some underspending. So if you took those out, it would be below the prior year. So that's just to kind of situate you as we move into this. So we're gonna step through now the different adjustments that can be made in the fall TAO. Some of them essentially have to be made. Some of them, again, are more discretionary. So this first one has to be made. This is just taking the ending fund balance and subtracting out the beginning fund balance we had already budgeted. This just avoids double counting. So, and then there's a little tracker at the bottom of the slides that attempts to track, like, after you do this thing, what is the available fund balance? And that's gonna be cumulative as we go. So that one is pretty straightforward. And then this next slide just shows you, again, another view of the same trend we've been seeing, that the yellow is the prior year's ending fund balance, the blue is the beginning fund balance, the budgeted beginning fund balance, and so that difference is what we're truing up. And so you can see that difference is smaller this year than it has been. All right, now we're getting into some more of the other adjustments. So this is a list of pretty technical adjustments that have to be made. The first one really reflects an error. It's essentially $8.1 million that should not have shown up in the ending fund balance because it was a transfer that didn't get made correctly. And then going down the line, there's an amount that there's an ordinance and there's a follow-on resolution from 2015 that directs excess funding from short-term rental revenue taxes to go to the Housing Investment Fund. So it lands in the general fund, we just have to move it to the Housing Investment Fund. There was a budgeting error in arts, and then some minor true-ups for labor bargaining contracts that were decided in the spring. So that's that. For encumbrance carryovers, I'm going to hand it over to Anthony, who's more in the weeds on these in a second here, but just as a general for folks who are following along, what these are, it's the amount, they're amounts that were encumbered in the prior fiscal year that were essentially tied up in a contract or a purchase order at the end of the fiscal year, and that work was not complete at the end of the fiscal year. And essentially, because it's tied up, the money has to stay with the contract in the prior fiscal year. And so it closes out the fiscal year with that contract, because you might get a bill on June 29th. And then it falls to balance. So it ends up in that bucket of ending fund balance. And then in the fall, the City Budget Office runs a process where bureaus submit their encumbrance carryover requests, and we go through them line by line. We check the purchase orders. We make sure it was in fact encumbered last year. We don't let them, have many multi-year encumbrances. We check that they are proposing to do the same work that was originally intended with that money. And so we collect that list and we vet it pretty closely. I will also note these are just in the general fund.
Okay, before we do that,
yes.
I want to go, because you're making a significant slide difference between encumbrances,
yeah,
which to me sound like contracts have already been executed, but on the previous slide, you used the words technical and have to be made. These both to me sound like have to be mades. So if we could go back before we go into Anthony's portion, I just want to check in with council on this sheet if there are questions up to this point yet. Councilor Green.
Thank you, and thank you, Director. I'm sort of following along with this presentation and also the memo that was published and sent to us on Thursday. On page 7, it describes the encumbrance carryover requests. And the last sentence says, if City Council does not approve these encumbrance carryover requests, the programs would have to reduce services, possibly including terminating contracts. So to me, that seems like there are potentially some encumbrances that would involve a termination of a contract, but the way it's being described here seems like they would all implicate a termination of contract. Can you clarify that?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think there are probably cases you could pick out where they could potentially a bureau could potentially substitute other funding. It may require coming back to council to move money around in order to do that. I just didn't want to say in every case it will certainly result in terminating a contract, because I can't 100% tell you that that's true. So I think bureaus would say, yeah, we'll have to end this contract if we don't have the funding that supports the contract. Could council choose to move money around to fund it in a different way? In some cases, yes. So
okay. I just wanted to get clarity on that, because what I'm trying to manage in my mind as we walk through this is $18.5 million in encumbrance carryovers, and then towards the end of the presentation, roughly about the same number in terms of a deficit that needs to be reconciled.
Yep.
That's it for now. Thanks.
Okay, going back on the previous slide, so I want to be clear. These particularly, well, all of them, they all represent something that occurred before June 30th, but in the budget that was passed prior to June 30th, for what reason or not, they were not accounted for, or they came in too late in the fiscal year to be accounted for what the the council voted on a couple of weeks prior. Is that a layman's way of reading what you're presenting here, in particular the short-term rental fund for the housing investment fund? I'm trying to understand that one, since it's a regular order of business for the last decade.
Yeah.
What's occurring there?
Yeah. So that one actually is, so they all have a little bit of their own flavor to them. That one in particular is actually, the resolution was written that way to say in the fall of each year, the way we do this is we calculate the difference between what was forecast for short-term rental revenue and what in fact came in, and we want the general fund to send it over to the housing investment fund. It was essentially like they passed the initial ordinance. I'm not remembering which year the initial ordinance was. And then it was hey, we need more affordable housing. We want to do this by taking this delta and every fall bump, essentially send it over to housing investment fund. So
Okay.
It just was designed that way.
So am I reading it that the short-term rental fees that are coming in are benefiting the housing investment fund by 2.4 then? And
Correct.
the way we account for that by ordinance from previous council is to do it in the fall?
Correct.
Okay. And the reason it's has to be decided here is because it goes from a general fund into a specific restricted fund.
That's right. So it
Okay.
came into the general fund, fell to balance, and we have to now pick it up and move it.
Okay, thanks. All right, I think that's it for me. If we want to move, unless there are other questions, we're going to move to Anthony's portion then. Thanks.
Great. All right. My name is Anthony Locke, Supplemental Budget Coordinator in the City Budget Office. I'm going to walk through the next couple of slides relatively quickly. Happy to stop and answer questions. Much of what we're going to cover is crosswalked in Exhibit 7, which is the Fall Town Memo. So as Ruth mentioned, our office and our analysts apply kind of three lenses, three criteria as we look at encumbrance carryover. Number one, as Ruth mentioned, the purchase order was opened in the previous fiscal year. Number two, the carryover supports the work, the same work in the previous fiscal year. And number three, I think important to highlight is that the Bureau's general fund underspending needs to correspond to the total amount requested. So like if a Bureau had $400,000 in underspending, they can't request $600,000 of carryover. So part of what this process does is it allows bureaus to take underspending in the previous year's budget and carry it into the current fiscal year to help pay for work that was established and committed to in the previous fiscal year. So as you can see here, at a high level, the total amount of encumbrance carryovers that our Bureau recommended through those lenses is $18.5 million. And you see there the kind of the higher amounts ranked in size order, and there is corresponding narrative in Exhibit 7. So Prosper Portland, just comment briefly, is it's largely a technical issue resolving or involving when invoices came into Prosper for costs that they've incurred over the last couple of fiscal years, and because of the timing of a number of those transactions, we need to move $4.2 million into Prosper's budget. Portland Solutions, this
Can you go into a little bit more about what, that's a pretty significant number. Can you go into what those were that came in after June 30?
Go ahead, yeah.
I'll start and you can weigh in. It's a multi-year issue involving, so Prosper Portland, because they're a separate entity, invoices us, the city budget office, for the city's general fund contributions to Prosper through an IGA. And there was an invoicing error in that they had, they get general fund and recreational cannabis tax fund and significant amounts of recreational cannabis tax funds. And they essentially invoiced the general fund for the recreational cannabis tax fund. We fixed that in last year's fall bump, but we didn't fix it quite correctly. And they hit a hard stop on their appropriations essentially in the general fund. And so they didn't get reimbursed for all of the work that they did last fiscal year. So it's like a legacy of an error that happened 2 years ago that continued into last year. We think we have finally corrected it and finally cleaned up the invoicing, and this just essentially makes them whole for that work that didn't get paid for last fiscal year. So it's a bit of an odd one.
Vice Chair.
As I remember the conversation during the budget process in the spring, and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, there were a number of funds that we encumbered where we moved the money, knowing that there would be invoices that would need to be paid in the next year. So if we knew, well, backing up, if there had been an issue with the flavor of money that we sent them, and we needed to fix that, and we did fix that last year, why was there not $4.2 million that in the spring we said we know that they won't be billing us for this on time, so we need to move that to next year's budget to cover? Why are we just being hit with this bill now?
So a couple of things. One, clarification. What we do in the spring with the this is somewhat tangential, but I think important to clarify, the policy, what we call policy carryovers in the spring, those are not encumbered funds because the money has to stay with the encumbrance. That being said, to your question, we didn't figure this out till July this year. So
But did they get the funds last year and overspend? I'm trying to think from a broader accounting perspective.
Yeah.
If we fixed this last year, what happened to the $4.2 million in last year's budget, and where did it go?
We did not fix it last year. We fixed it in the summer. So in the current fiscal year, we fixed it, and it did not get paid because Robert's not here. With the essentially, and we can get you a fuller description. Honestly, it did not get paid because they have an appropriation. We have an appropriation limit for how much we spend up to that council sets. And because essentially they had prior year's expenses that were, we did not adjust up their appropriation limit last fiscal year because with the fix that we did last year, we didn't adjust the appropriation limit. We just sent the money to the correct fund. It was an oversight. And they were essentially like, their spending last fiscal year was contributing to their appropriations, but it was really like 2 years of spending that were contributing to their appropriations. So in the spring, they hit that appropriations limit. We, the city budget office, did not know that until summer. So that's why we have to fix it now, is we didn't know about it in spring to fix it. But yeah, essentially, we moved the money to the correct fund in 24-25. We just didn't also adjust their appropriations so that they could continue to spend up above that initial limit.
What I'm trying to understand, and I appreciate that explanation, and that all makes sense. What I'm still trying to understand, and if this is information you need to get me between now and when we hear this at full council, and that's okay. It sounds like at some point there was $4.2 million, I'm gonna say in cash, available. And we had to do things on paper around what fund is it, what year is it, where is it?
Yeah.
But now we have to come up with another $4.2 million in cash, if you will, to give to them. And what I'm trying to understand is where, not on paper, where did it go? Because I understand that sometimes those mistakes happen and we've got to fix it all. Where did the actual dollars go, and how come we're having to find, not just reappropriate, but find an additional bucket of $4.2 million for them? That's the piece I'm missing.
Yeah. So it was functionally underspent in 25-26. We could not send it to them. So it is, the cash fell to balance in 24-25 in the same way that, pick another encumbrance, that the cash fell to balance in the same way. So that cash is sitting there in ending fund balance, and that's why we're calling it an encumbrance carryover, because technically we encumber the money we send to Prosper. So it works the same way as all the others. The money fell to balance. Now we're saying, hey, this was really owed to you, Prosper, under your IGA. And so it's an encumbrance carryover in that same way. Does that help?
I think so. It may be that just because of the order things are in on the slides, it's not making a direct line for me. What I'm seeing here is that these are a whole bunch of things we need money for that are putting us into the red on the chart at the bottom of the page. What you're saying is that actually functionally that 4.2 million is not part of what drives us into the red. If we go back a few slides to the general fund balance, what is it? Is it slide 7 or 5? That this is actually part of what was shifted forward as the ending fund balance, and we're just repurposing.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I forgot to say something, which is, so normally there's underspent, like normally because these are encumbrance carryovers, they fell to balance. That money is there. And the reason it's not there functionally is because the revenues came in below budget. So definitionally, all of these things have underspending associated with them. It's just that functionally, like, we would have not had enough money last fiscal year to pay all of these things if the bills had all come due by June 30th. So
because some of the revenue collection that we lost was actually last fiscal year, not this fiscal year.
It was all last fiscal year's revenue
until now.
Correct. Yeah, it's all last fiscal year's revenue. So I think that's another good clarification here is the revenue shortfall we're talking about only bears on FY 24-25. Peter will talk more on Wednesday about like what does that mean in a broader sense for 25-26, but like the hard thing about these TAO moments is that we're really talking about what happened last fiscal year. We're just talking about what our budget was for 24-25 compared to what we actually collected from taxpayers in 24-25. And the problem is we're just dealing with that problem now.
Got it. We're at like 95% making sense. I'll ask more questions
Happy to follow
next
up.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Anthony, as you continue, if you could, you're using this slide and you've noted the 18.5 million and you've listed the large ones. If you could, I know that it's impossible to get everything on a screen. If you could speak to how you're telling this story to get to that bottom 19.5 and the 14.7 so that we can really bring this picture home on your slides. You guys have a lot of documents, and being able to understand, some of the last year's fiscal things requires you making some connections to your graphics that you're using here as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. All right. So on page 6 of Exhibit 7, you can see the total amount of the encumbrance carryovers that Bureau has requested and that we are recommending to Council for approval of $18.4 million in encumbrance carryovers. So again, we listed I think the 6 highest amounts here, and there's more explanation on pages 7 and 8 about the different purchase orders and the different services that are contained in them. And encumbrance carryovers can serve a lot of different purposes. Sometimes they're contracts. For example, in the Office of the Public Safety DCA, it represents like grant ability for programs like Peace Up and Ceasefire. For parks, they have the ability to retain their general fund underspending. So that's so there's different flavors in some of it, but all of this represents general fund underspending in the previous years in those respective bureaus. And no bureau is requesting more than their previous year underspending. And so what we see here in total is there's $18.5 million of commitments that did not go out the door by June 30th of fiscal year 24-25 of underspending that we are recommending being carried over. So, and then as you see here, just briefly, there's $1 million in policy carryover. So these don't represent contracts or firm commitments, but represent different policy initiatives that say whatever the ending fund balance is for these particular programs should be eligible to be carried over into the previous year per previous agreement. So that's what the Clean Air Construction Agreement highlights. That's what the Fire Wellness Funds highlights as well. So when you add the $18.5 million across citywide encumbrances plus the about $1 million in policy carryover that our office is recommending, that totals to $19.5 million. And then, so you can see there on the bottom right of this slide contributes to the $14.7 million deficit. That gets us to kind of the starting point before we think about so encumbrance and policy carryovers do represent discretionary decisions because what this represents is the Bureau's ability to carry over previous year underspending. It represents the ability to pay for these things. It doesn't mean like these things cannot be done. It doesn't mean they can't be funded. It doesn't mean that this work cannot be absorbed by the Bureau. It just means that they're able to carry over previous year budget authority to help pay for the things that were committed in the previous year.
I want to just ask a clarifying question, and that gets a little bit to my philosophy of, for me, the answer to the question about encumbrances changes based on if the XYZ Corporation has provided a service before June 30th to the Parks Bureau, and they didn't bill the Parks Bureau for that service until the current fiscal year. To me, that's an easy one to pay. If the Parks Bureau had $1 million to spend with XYZ Corporation, but they didn't spend $400,000 of that, I have a very different answer in allowing a carryover into July 1st, because while we authorize all the bureaus to spend up to a point, there's also, in my mind, a contract that says we're not then authorizing you $1.4 million the next year just because you were very stingy in the first year. So if you can clarify for me which one of these items falls into the we already have the good we paid for, in fact we're using it, or somebody got trained on it, or it's mowing the grass right now, we just haven't paid the bill, and there's somebody out there who's like, the city of Portland is stiffing me. That one, easy. But a few points that have been made, there's a few areas where I can't quite tell if this is encompassing both or just one of those scenarios. I hope those make sense.
Yeah. I would say, and I'll let you weigh in, like, I think the police example is the best one. I don't think, by and large, I don't think we're stiffing people. But I do think while there are some cases, I think, where for some reason the billing was delayed, I think by and large these represent things that we are continuing to buy in the fiscal year. One caveat to that is it's now almost November, so there are probably cases where the Bureau has spent it between July and now. And so that if they didn't get this money in the fall TAO, they would run short on the money on what they have bought between July and right now.
So I want to pause. Just if that was the case, why would the normal financial policies of the city not dictate that action be considered part of their current year budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think the policy that councils have taken in the past on encumbrance carryovers is a choice. I think the choice is, and happy to have Jonas come, he might be gone. The choice is, essentially it's saying, like, we recognize that the fiscal year is a construct and that work doesn't happen between July 1st and June 30th, and that it would be sort of administratively burdensome to end everything we're doing on June 30th and then restart it on July 1st, that, things are gonna cross fiscal years. We in the general fund, we constrain that, right? It's supposed to be just things that were open in the prior fiscal year. We don't let this drag on. But also, there is, I think part of it is if the revenues come in as forecast, there is underspending to support the cost in the next fiscal year. And so this situation has not come up in recent years. And so I think, so it would be a case if you were to tell me, like, okay, what if we just disallowed all 18.5 million of these? We would have to go kind of line by line and tell you, like, the Prosper one would be a big problem. The Parks one would mean they would draw more, that $2 million more from the levy, and they might not make it through this fiscal year. There's different answers to each of those. The police one, I think they did receive a thing. So, I think it is, if council wants to dive deeper and say, we want to cut this by something, it would just take more analysis to get back to you on.
Thanks. So I'm going to highlight this portion just for the committee, is that I do think that this is highlighting a package of financial policies that we probably owe this city that have been kind of bubbling in the offices for a while. I think that a significant amount of what we see in practice right now, I would put into the category of it probably passed legal muster, but was mostly a gentleman and gentlewoman's agreement between bureaus in the old system. Ordering I'm going to use this as an example. Ordering furniture that is back ordered, that is delivered in October, but was ordered in May. It's a simple answer for me. Choosing not to order it because you saved some money, but you didn't have council authorize you to keep it, for me gets much shadier in terms of practice and what comes forward. And I think we have a little bit of both, because I remember plenty of carryovers that were addressed in the budget, but then it always seems like there are more. I want the more to be fewer and far between, and examples of supply chain issues or workload issues, capacity issues, and not, we just chose not to execute until later. And I think we owe some guidance moving forward in terms of how bureaus can expect to be received at this body and then at the full council. I'd make a request that when we go into the work session is that we do have the ability to go into the details of the variety of these, so we can make that judgment about where we just need to pay our bills and where we've made a choice maybe not to execute in 1 year, but do it in the next. Okay, that's it for my.
Okay, great. All right, so this slide highlights key general fund decision points. So items that are where there's a level of discretion where council has the opportunity to make a choice on how the resources are being used. This is what our office is recommending. And so there are a couple items here. There are a couple of general fund returns of sorts. So you have so that means that this would lower the deficit in the general fund. So we're recommending that these returns be used to help lower the deficit that we're looking at in the general fund in the fall TAO. Then you have a number of draws on general fund. So you have the Green 13 Public Safety Policy Set Aside, $2.2 million. Public Safety has a number of four requests across the service area that highlight different actions that the Bureau wants to take in line with the kind of the parameters that Commissioner Green set up in the adopted budget. We have $450,000 set aside for a disparity study. We have a $3.25 million reimbursement to the Insurance and Claims Fund, and then we have $226,000 kind of committed draws from that state refund that you see in the return above. So those represent kind of discretionary decision points in the general fund for council.
Do you want to questions now or keep going?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the slide, so thanks for calling out the Green 13. I just want to confirm, in terms of the other draws, that one seems to be the only one that is a direct reference back to the budget that we passed for 25-26, because mechanistically it said, okay, we're going to move $2.2 million in the general fund contingency to then be held for DCA Bob Cosley to present council with a spending plan for recruitment, training, capacity expansion. So this then is that next step. This is that sort of presentation.
That is correct.
Account.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this $2.2 million is the only amount that was planned for, like that we knew about coming into this fiscal year.
And then the other three pieces are responsive to how conditions have changed from this perspective of the city budget office since we passed the budget, and we might need a fund. Is that fair?
Mostly, yeah. The Insurance and Claims Fund reimbursement we also knew about, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, otherwise, yes.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thanks.
Chair, not a question on the slide, but just a note, because you were talking about policies that we might want to change. I'm struggling with the fact that we have something that we budgeted for, that was accounted for in the previous budget, alongside things that have come up, some of them as recently as a week or two ago, categorized the same way. And maybe that's not hard for others, but I do think that we should be mulling over how we categorize things that were part of a balanced budget. And of course, receipts have come in lower. Our budget is a bit out of balance because of that. But how do we account for a balanced budget and the adjustments that we need to make to appropriate things out of money that was set aside into expenditures from what was a balanced budget? And how do we differently account for, hey, some things have come up over the last few months that were unexpected and weren't part of the budget, and we need to figure out in this technical adjustment how to budget for those?
Yeah, similar question. I don't know if you want a chance to respond or talk through that a little bit.
Go for it. You can ask yours and then I can.
No, I don't have one.
Before
I move on to council.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's a good point, a good flag, and might just be my budget brain that lumped them together. But it's solely because we have to move that money out of contingency council would have to move money out of contingency in order for the bureaus to spend the money that was put there by Green 13. So it requires a technical action that does draw from contingency. That's the only reason it's there, but you're right, that it is sort of different in kind.
Councilor Green.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on you're highlighting something that I've been worried about a little bit with this slide, and talking to some of my colleagues, because it does suggest these are all things that are, I mean, of course, it's always discretionary every time we meet to set a budget or adjust a budget, but this would sort of gloss over the idea that we had some pretty robust debate around Green 13. It was part of the plan. So maybe going forward, a different part of the slide or something else that says, look, this is really just a moving monies between buckets to effectuate the main budget versus the other things. Thanks.
Yeah, we could certainly split it out. I mean, in the past, we've distinguished kind of distinct policy set-aside types of things, and this would be a policy set-aside amount we could separate from the slide.
Right, so we'd be saying, look, here's a contingency fund that was a policy set aside. It didn't really have an answer, but we indicated now it has an answer and we need to appropriate it, right? That, I think to Councilor Green's point and others, I think that again, I'll go back to the narrative is really important as we go through these numbers, because when there's not a narrative, there's a whole host of grabby hands who want to do other things with it. But we've already decided what this was. We just needed some meat on the bones, I think. And I think that is helpful in this. And I've seen that in some previous presentations where we can see those set-asides and what they were heading toward. Okay, there are no further questions up here if you want to keep on going.
All right, so this slide highlights some adjustments that are outside the general fund. Typically, when we talk to council, we have we highlight discretion. We highlight general fund impacts and general fund opportunities, but here are a number of other adjustments contained in the fall TAO that are not that don't directly. Well, yeah, they don't.
Or they're net zero.
They're net zero, or they're not directly tied to the general fund, I would say.
So just really quickly, on the net zero piece, the shelter services budget adjustment is net zero because it reduces revenue, external revenue that was expected that did not come in, and it reduces expenses by the same amount. So it doesn't affect the general fund in that way. And then the communications enterprise efficiencies are somewhat similar in that the budget was already reduced in the adopted budget by that 10% amount. And this just kind of effectuates that. There were essentially placeholder amounts there for that. And this reduces the FTE, the position authority in certain bureaus based on those reductions, but it doesn't reduce the budget because that was already done. And so that doesn't have a net impact on the budget. It also moves some positions from one place to another. So those are the kind of net zero changes here. Any questions?
Yeah, so continuing on the communications piece there. So that is part of the administrator's plan that he briefed in the spring, was that reduction in force would occur later in the year. And so they started with those FTE, but now that we're to the fall, those FTE are leaving. Do you know off the top of your head the number of FTE reduction that communications took?
Yeah, it's a net reduction of 6 positions. 6 positions.
Thank you.
Some vacant, some filled.
Okay, and then on the top one, this reduction in expenditures, because we didn't receive the 11 million from the state legislature as the mayor had anticipated, is there anywhere else in this technical adjustment ordinance that backfills or adds any funding to the shelter services budget?
So I don't know if I would necessarily describe it as backfill, but there is an encumbrance, a general fund, both general fund encumbrance carryover for $2.6 million for sheltering. There is also carryover of SHS funding.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that functionally adds budget in this fiscal year for those amounts to the sheltering program.
But there's nothing new outside of carryover that's intended to backfill the $11 million.
Okay. So it would be an inaccurate statement that while we got 11 million less in revenue, our spending is only reducing by 8.4. Is that an inaccurate statement, or are we actually reducing the spending and our authorization of 11?
I think the Shannon and Sky aren't here, but I would say, I mean, I think neither of those is totally incorrect. It depends what your baseline is that you're working from, right? What was your assumption about the amount you would have in the next fiscal year? I think the reality is that because they budgeted before they had taken over those contracts from the county, it was, based on their best estimate at the time of what the spending would be. So compared to that estimate, it is $11 million lower total across overnight and alternative shelters.
But go ahead and put on that list for Wednesday's work session a deep dive by the Portland Solutions team, so we can best understand the 2.6. It's not surprising that the two we've talked the most about are the two largest ones, obviously. I think that, the state legislature failing to fund the Portland issue is notable, and I think that the mayor worked really hard at it, but what we haven't seen, really hard at getting them to fund this, what we haven't seen then is the new narrative and the new true up of what does the sheltering program look like, save for the planned at $11 million. We haven't received that yet in a robust conversation the way we did when the 11 was part of that solution. So I think before this council passes a TOW, we need to understand those two things as they relate to each other. Thank you.
All right, and finally, there are a few personnel adjustments in the fall TOW, many of which are technical in nature. When a position moves from one business area to another, it requires one business area to reduce position and another one to increase position, so we can track position authority across the city. So on the top here, you'll see most of the bureau realignments that we're recommending in the TOW. And then you see a few of the kind of adjustments, some adjustments here that represent some decisions. So within the Green 13 public safety set aside, there is a request for 3 limited term positions. As I mentioned earlier, the communications realignment has a net reduction of 6 positions, and then there are a couple of other really small items that are tied to non-general fund funding. So for example, the adopted budget true-ups are tied to money that was received in the fiscal year 25-26 budget, and there should have been personnel authority added to those, but for a number of reasons, there wasn't personnel authority added, so that the money is already there. For example, like for PSF resources to support summer works and BHR. So we're adding the position authority here while the money has already been allocated in the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Is it fair to call that a Scrivener's error if they budgeted for 10 FTE, but they only had authorization for 9? But how did that happen? Because that's usually a big thing for a budget professional is how many FTE have I budgeted toward what I'm being funded for? Or, and this is where I'm a little concerned, is that the number actually trues up that they can squeeze in another FTE now because the budget was large enough. What are we experiencing in this situation?
So for example, for BHR, there was a couple iterations in the proposed where they received money to support a program. And initially, the support for that program was going to be in money that would go out to the community. But I think there was an additional amount added kind of at the last second. And then where we should have added the position authority in addition to the funding to support that program. But yeah, Scrivener's errors of sorts. Like the intent was for a position to be added to be supported by the funding. And that was the intent of the decision package. But for whatever reason, the position authority was not added, so we're adding it now in the fall.
Okay. I am switching topics a little bit. I am surprised, given the briefings that I've received, not to see anything in here about urban forestry changes over to PP&D, given the budget constraints that the administration made me aware of some I think 6 to 8 weeks ago. Is that for me to assume that everything as it was presented in the budget has moved successfully over?
Let's get back to you. I can't remember if there's a package in there and we just didn't have it on the slide or not. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have, I'm not as involved. I know there's a number of packages to resolve things on the technical side. And again, yeah, we can get you more information on that. But yes, we do have, there are highly technical decision packages kind of resolving things on the back end related to urban forestry.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Going to the health fund?
All right, so a little bit different topic, but also part of the TAO. CBO and BHR did briefings with each of the council offices on this, but essentially the TAO as filed contains an directive to add an assumption around additional reserve funding for the health fund, to build up the health fund reserves. This was aligned with a 3-year plan for building up that reserve back to the recommended levels. So it's about $10 million a year for 3 years citywide. This directive is focused on the general fund as part of the current appropriation level process. So it directs us to make an assumption about that general fund portion of the $10-ish million, which is about $4.5 million. That just says, in addition to the status quo benefit renewal assumption that you're building into the base budget, also build in an amount for the reserve funding. So it leaves that 15% is from the budget note called I think protecting workers from future health benefit increases that was adopted in the budget. That stays. There's sort of no action there because council already adopted that budget note. And so this is adding on top of that the reserve funding amount.
Okay, I keep looking to see if there are comments, so I'm going to jump in since there are none. I will just flag colleagues that we've all received the reserve fund briefing from staff. I've indicated some pretty significant concern about extending this over 3 years. I think that 2 years was more appropriate, but even 1 year is most appropriate. I say that fully acknowledging the impact that filling that hole will make. But I also say that in response to, by the summer of next year, we will have been in a transition to this new form of government for 2 years. And I don't think that this government has truly right-sized in any meaningful fashion. And so by extending the health fund backfill by 3 years, I think we are allowing the city administration to continue to keep this organization improperly sized, given the transition to the new form of government. And we've barely scratched the surface. I think that by going to a 2 or 1 year would be somewhat of a forcing function. And I say that with very serious concern that we will ask that truing up of the workforce and of the bureaus of our new city administrator. And having worked in that world a little bit, the idea of asking a brand new city administrator to immediately have to consider reductions in force when the current administrator and the current council and the current mayor had 1 year for us, but frankly 2 years for the city administrator to do significant and very unfortunate but required downsizing and right sizing, would be a terrible beginning quarter for that new city administrator. So I'm flagging that for you all because I think it'll be important in our work session that we have, and an area that this slide is interesting, but the slide in the brief from HR and budget about the hole which our reserve fund is in relative to the health fund is, for me, incredibly alarming, more than I've ever seen it. So I wanted to bring that point up before we go into the work session later this week. Councilor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to confirm for the slide, so the $4.5 million in reserve funding, that's just for the 26-27 fiscal year?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so the expectation is you'd need to do that same amount for roughly 3 years to get to a healthy level per our generally accepted, I forget the exact nomenclature, but to have the appropriate self-funded plan, risk reserves, we would need that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate the comments on the right sizing exercise 2 years in. It's like, pretty soon it's like, okay, who's holding the bag for this thing, right? I do note, though, it looks like if you read to the end of the package, this sort of pre-funding does come at the expense of the compensation set aside contingency balances, right? Because that's how we're balancing everything at the end of the day, is more or less, we're drawing that down.
That's correct. Good flag, though. This, so this is just this is the one piece of this ordinance that is forward-looking. So this one is about 26, 27. So it does nothing to our current fiscal year budget. It does, however, essentially mean more cuts would be required in 26, 27. By loading in more expense up front, right, we're saying the same work we're doing right now is going to cost that much more extra next year. And so in order to balance next year's budget, we will have to find that somewhere. And so council will have to find that somewhere. And so that's what that does. But on this specific piece, it does not affect current year compensation set aside or any other contingency.
So this is like an analog to a sort of a budget note?
Yes,
okay.
Functionally, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for you, Mr. Chair. Are you saying that you think that we should force a build-up of the health fund in just 1 year in order to force the current administration to fire a bunch of people in the next year?
I think that 2 years is the most reasonable, and I think that using the 6 FTE reduction in communications from the 85 that were advertised when this government got started, I think is an example of, unless you truly use a forcing function, this administration has not shown itself to be able to put itself workforce-wise into this current form of government. I am saying that. So I think 2 years to build up that reserve fund. And I'll just say the importance of a reserve fund is, do we pay people's insurance claims? It isn't a significantly important part. So yes, there is an aspect to it that is talking about the workforce, right? And we have seen very little from the administration in the last budget that reduced the administration and management workforce and other areas. What we haven't seen yet is, what line of business are we no longer going to be in? What are our core services that we're going to fund? So that's where my brain is going. I think that that's a reasonable conversation for an administration and a council to have, but I have very significant reservations about placing this burden on a new city administrator. In fact, it was in my comments when I voted to approve the current city administrator, is that this needed to happen before long. And what I see is a continued kicking of the can.
Councilor, I would note that the main lines of business that we're in, at least as far as the general fund is concerned, are police, fire, parks, and homeless services. And I assume that you're not suggesting we get any of those lines of business. As far as what the administration, I think somewhat inelegantly is called core services or sort of central support services, I think they made a commitment to do a 20% reduction in the next year or two. So I think that there has been an indication that they are planning to handle personnel. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
I think we heard today that there was maybe a 10% or less in just one area, and I think continually we see that the 20% is actually not being met, even though that's what was advertised.
Just picking up on that last comment about the 20% or 10% reduction, I want to note, because it's come up here, that we all should be getting information about the specifics of that reduction in communication staff over the next few days. Ruth, I have a question, not about this slide, but broadly. Obviously, we'll have some decisions to make about what we do with this deficit that you've brought to us, this negative $18.8 million. I presume that there will be a few different ways that we can address that. I've heard from the mayor that he has already started to take some actions. What is the health of our city reserves right now? And where do we sit compared to what you consider an ideal or a responsible or healthy place?
Yeah, so
Sorry to ask that without Jonas here to answer as well, but.
It's okay. A couple of things. So one, I just want to note, we're really just focused on the general fund here. And so, you know, that's kind of separate from any restricted funding reserve balances. So that's kind of a separate conversation because, yeah, as we see with the health fund, there may be issues of areas of concern, but that's kind of mostly a separate issue. So within the general fund, so we have to make that $8.1 million transfer to maintain the 10% requirement for the general fund reserve. And I want to make a distinction here between reserves, like formal reserves, and contingencies, which are used a bit differently. So that reserve will be there. You know, I think there's obviously a lot happening in the world that could necessitate some larger action by council. I think, you know, I won't go down that path, but so I think it is prudent and important for our financial health as a city to have that 10% reserve. Within the contingency bucket, sorry, I was trying to pull up a slide. The general fund contingency budgeted contingency is about 25.6 million. This is on page 15 to 16 of the memo that's in Exhibit 7. After, if council were to adopt all of the TAO as, you know, filed, which obviously you don't have to, but if you were, it would leave about $6.8 million in contingency. That includes $3 million of unrestricted contingency that our city financial policy directs us to put in every year. And that is for, you know, things that come up at the end of the fiscal year, you know, like last year we talked about, you know, May Day protests and things that happen towards the end of the year that could have, you know, unknown fiscal impacts. So I think with the 16, if council were to adopt this package, the main thing that the administration has talked about in terms of cost reductions is the hiring freeze, which is in place now. I think there will have to be continued conversation with council, both about the effectiveness of the hiring freeze as a cost saving measure and about what you want to do about it, because you know, money, the savings from that will accumulate where it's budgeted. Council can choose to pick up those savings and move them around, which is sort of what a contingency functions as, right? So I guess all of that together, I would say, you know, I'm sort of nervously comfortable with where the contingency level is. If council were to approve this ordinance, I think there will be continued conversation that will have to be had this year. I think the sort of, as we're thinking about policies going forward, Peter's going to talk again more about BLT on Wednesday. BLT is a very volatile revenue source in terms of when we get in money, you know, and again, Peter will go into this in depth. The county actually has a contingency just for their business tax revenue, or reserve rather. We're sort of using compensation set aside like that in this case, right? Like it is helping us to smooth. It's not like we're saying council has to make expenditure cuts right now, next week or whatever. The contingency essentially buys us time to figure out how to accommodate those reductions. But there are other ways council could approach this problem of having this large volatile revenue source. And so I think that's a longer term conversation. But as of, this ordinance, I think we have enough tools in the toolkit to make us okay for this fiscal year. And that reserve is there in case something really goes off the rails.
So presumably, if we take out that 3 million that's set aside for emergencies, we would end this fiscal year with 3.8 million in our contingency fund.
Yes.
The numbers that you just gave. Yep. What did we end last fiscal year with in our contingency fund?
So
Sorry, I know none of us have looked at those numbers for 6 months. 4 months.
So it's a good question. I think we had about $28 million in unspent contingency, but we budgeted for some of that. So that's where this budgeted beginning fund balance, we sort of pre-count some of that unspent contingency. We did last year have, it was sort of, it can be thought of as like a source of one-time general fund revenue, right? So like we had last fall bump, the council put about, do you remember how much it was into capital set aside? 13 million?
Yeah, about that.
About 13 million into capital set aside. That became essentially one-time general fund revenue in the budget. It was used as beginning fund balance and for 25-26. So I guess I'm highlighting this to say there was a lot more there last year at this time, and that was a resource for balancing the budget.
And that's part of what I'm trying to get to is how much worse off will we be next year? Because this feels to me like the first real clear picture with numbers. We've known we would be worse off, but we didn't know how much worse off. So we're starting without that 25 million of one-time funding. We're starting with our contingency at 3 million instead of 20, did you say 6 million?
Of unspent, I think that's right. I'll confirm that.
So we're starting, I'm gonna round and say we're starting with 20 million less in contingency that we can rely on, that we've actually spent through, which means we have to figure out if we're going to continue the current spending level, how we come up with those funds. So what none of this really shows is that we're actually starting the next fiscal year $40 to $50 million worse off than this past fiscal year, and we don't expect our revenues to be back up yet. Is that accurate?
If in your 40 to 50 million, are you counting the health fund?
I'm not.
Increase? Oh.
I'm not.
Okay.
So 40 to 50 million plus another 13 million in general fund worse off, and we don't expect revenues to be any better.
I think that is roughly right, and I will I'll have Peter come up.
I don't need exact numbers, I just need scale.
For scale, that is correct. The only thing I will comment on the revenue projections for next year, we can still have growth for that statement to largely be true, where revenue can increase between this year and next year. We're running with a current year deficit that's going to get carried forward to next year. It's a 100% accurate statement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to keep on pushing us toward a resolution of this item so we can get on to our others, but I want to look to Councilor Green if you'd like to have a question before we move to discussion.
That's for discussion.
Okay. Ruth and Anthony, anything you'd like to contribute before we move into discussion with the council, or with the committee, excuse me? Or is this the end of your?
This is the end of the presentation. I think we've covered it all.
Great. Okay. So the action, colleagues, today in front of us is to move this on to council. I will say we do have the work session with the whole council coming up. I am somewhat sympathetic and interested in your thoughts about postponing an action from the committee today to hear from our colleagues at the work session, and then to bring it back with passage at this committee at a future finance committee once we've heard that work session. But I would like to introduce that as we have discussion as a committee for today. Councilor Green.
Thank you, Chair. That's actually what I was going to sort of broach here. I was prepared to move to refer this back to the carrying office. I don't feel comfortable voting on the TAO at this stage before we've had that broader discussion. I think for me, there's a number of items that I still need a lot more detail on. The discussion around the Prosper Portland prior years, kind of billing snafu, for lack of a better term. I don't understand enough about that to be comfortable with voting on a package that is probably the second largest chunk of the carryover stuff. So I'll need to know that more. I think we all need to work through these decision packages because, I mean, I've identified at least one item that is new since we passed our budget that is in this decision package for Portland Solutions. It wasn't something that was intended to be spent in the last year, and if it was, it wasn't on paper. And so there's stuff that is new in this budget, and we need to figure out where that is so we can have conversations around that, and that takes a little more time. So I'd be very supportive of postponing this and pulling it back.
Vice Chair.
On the technical end, I would prefer that we not refer it back. I think that any changes we need to make, we could make through amendments to the exhibits based on the conversation with our colleagues, but I would rather, in order to do our work, get this to council and do the work at full council on the timeline that we need to be responsible with these budget decisions. I'd rather that we hold on to this as opposed to send it back to have the administration bring us something new.
Lay on the table. Postponed.
Postpone to a future meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilor Novick.
I prefer the council president's suggestion as well. Okay.
I think with that, and hearing from all of you, I appreciate that a lot. I think we've given a lot of guidance for things that will help in the work session. And colleagues, I'm going to postpone action on this item and bring it back at our next Finance Committee. Right now, that is scheduled for the 10th of November. I also have open the next 2 Mondays, and so before I commit to that date, I am going to do a council ops check and a CFO check. It may come back that we request through Council President's office a sooner meeting of finance to meet this need. Okay? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask Ruth, if we do this, if we don't move ahead today, will the world end in some way? What problems might it cause, if any?
Sorry, I'm just thinking on my feet. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just the health fund thing, and I would like to have council weigh in on that before we make any assumptions around that, and we do load those budgets the first week of December. And then on the technical end, there may be...
Yeah, I mean, Bureau shouldn't, as far as we know, shouldn't be running into hard stops in the system like they would in the spring as they've spent down the budget. So 2 less weeks to in theory, for Green 13 to operationalize, but otherwise, I don't know if there's like a technical reason why we can't delay for 2 weeks.
The date that I've been working from, Councilor, is if we can achieve a council action prior to the last week, second to last week of November. So mid-November was always a goal. And I think we can still do that if council ops and the president notes that there may be some shoehorning in given that situation now. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And with that, clerk, I'll have you call the next item, please.
Item 3, authorize revenue bonds in an amount sufficient to provide not more than $41 million to finance city fleet maintenance facility improvements and related costs.
Hi, good afternoon. Go ahead and introduce yourselves and take it away.
Good afternoon, Finance Committee Chair Zimmerman, Vice Chair Burlingame, and councilors. For the record, I'm Matt Gurok, Debt Manager in the Public Finance Division, and I'm joined by some colleagues.
Hi, for the record, my name is Maddie Sauter. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Fleet and Facilities. And
Good afternoon, Michael Roy, City Fleet Director. So we're going to, let's see if I can share this. We'll be walking through the City Fleet Cutter Garage Bond Authorization Ordinance. Director Sauter is going to be walking through some project information, and then I'll go through information on the bond issuance. See if I can get this to work. There we go. Okay.
All right, so I believe that all three of you were able to take advantage of the tour that we offered to provide backstory and information on this project. Just as a quick reminder, City Fleet is the largest municipal fleet in the state, and so we support all bureaus and all field functions at the city. We're an essential services operation that springs into action 24/7 when required to for snow and ice activation, civil events, catastrophic events. It's very difficult to source most of the mechanical work that we require out in market, in part because we're an incredibly diverse fleet. We have all of the bureau functionalities that we must support, and particularly for heavy-duty operations, there's really not a market equivalent for what we do technically, and then also for the 24/7 operations. We've got about 85 FTE, and 40 of those techs are stationed at the Kirby Garage, which is our primary maintenance facility. The fleet in general, again, as I noticed, is extremely large and extremely diverse. It's about 3,600 units. Pretty much all of the heavy-duty fleet is serviced at Kirby. And then, of course, we have the green fleet transition on its way. So that is part of the city's climate action plan, and we're trying to figure out how to support and effectuate that. Next slide, please. The existing Kirby Garage has been in place for about 103 years, built in different phases. It's been City Fleet's primary maintenance facility since the early 1970s, and extraordinarily cramped in relation to what we need. So the fleet has grown, I think, by 270% in that time, and the space has grown by less than zero. And in fact, it's gone into the negatives because the mezzanine is a weight-restricted area, and so we cannot perform heavy-duty operations there. I think one of the things that's most notable is how inefficient and wasteful the layout is. In addition to being small, vehicles get packed in there and then they get delayed, which in my perception probably overfleets us because bureaus are purchasing more units than required in order to actually do their work, because we can't guarantee when completed work is going to get out of the garage. We've got sloped floors, the structure is not seismically stable, and we're in a landslide zone. We've looked at remediating those hazards in place, and it's not cost-effective whatsoever given the obsolescence of the facility. And so instead, last year, as part of the budget process, we sought out a leased facility after several runs at a built facility, because the leased facility seemed the most future-proofed while also handling our current situation. And so that facility is the Cutter Garage. Next slide, please. That site is already under lease. We are completing construction documents for it right now. We will then be heading into bidding to get a guaranteed maximum price. Our most exciting thing about it is that it has fire suppression and flat floors, but it is also sizable enough for us to do the operations that we need to do. Yeah, that's all we're asking for. So obviously, we'll be looking to improve productivity and efficiency there just through the garage's design. We'll be moving to a different model of work delivery holistically for our workforce. We'll have modern electrical systems that will be able to support EV charging at scale in the city's path to net zero. And I think we'll be achieving quite a bit of the energy efficiency and sort of labor-related goals in the delivery of the project that the city has expected of capital projects in generally. Overall, do you want to speak to funding? Well, most of this project will be funded through the bond proceeds that this ordinance will authorize, but I do want to note that we're also having a significant amount of PSEF investment supporting this, and then City Fleet itself is contributing cash that we had accumulated over the years, squirreling it away in the event this day came. This is a basic timeline in terms of order of operations. There's quite a lot that goes into the actual issuance of a bond, and so that's why there's an overlap between the completion of construction documents and the bidding process and the issuance of the bond. I do want to note that that timing is important. We don't want to front run with the bond too much our time, because it means we could end up not having a good estimate that we're basing this request on. We also don't want to delay it too much, because once you have a GMP and you know that firm price, that GMP is only good for a period of time. And so you can run the risk that it runs stale and you need to go back and ask for more. And with that, I'll hand it over to Matt.
I'll talk about the bonds. So the bonds will be secured by the city's full faith and credit, and payable from all available funds, including the general fund. However, the bonds are going to be budgeted for repayment from pass-through revenues received by the city's fleet fund, which collects funds from bureaus that utilize the fleet division services. The bonds are going to be issued on a tax-exempt basis and repaid over a 20-year period. We're currently assuming the interest rate to be 5%, which is cushioned by about 120 basis points to account for potential adverse interest rate movements between now and when we actually sell the bonds next April. As I mentioned, the bonds will be repaid from funds received from pass-through charges to city bureaus. The total annual pass-through charges for the project are estimated to be $7 million annually, which includes the bond debt service, which you can see on the right-hand side of the page here. The increase in pass-through charges have been communicated to city bureaus for a number of budget cycles since the project was initially approved by the prior city council. You can see in the pie chart below, roughly 34% of those pass-through charges will be the responsibility of general fund bureaus, including police, fire, and parks. In addition, PBOT is the largest user of the fleet maintenance services and will be responsible for roughly 40% of the ongoing costs. And however, it's noteworthy to mention that a portion of that is funded through a work agreement for services that PBOT provides to BES. So that's the information on this bond issuance. I also wanted to mention some good news on some bonds that we recently sold for our 2025 bonds. So we sold those bonds on October 7th, and we received bids from 19 underwriting firms, and those bonds are expected to close tomorrow. The financing results in roughly $100 million of funds for city infrastructure projects, including ADA curb ramps, 2 safety-oriented transportation corridor improvements, and renovations to the Mount Scott Community Center. The really good news is that the debt service has come under budget because of interest rates decreasing over the last several months. The lower interest rate results in $385,000 approximately in annual savings for both the general fund and the transportation fund for the next 15 years. And in addition, we experienced some modest annual savings with the Build Portland bonds in about $75,000. So that concludes the overview of the bonds, and happy to answer additional questions.
Thanks for the presentation. Let's move over to Councilor Green.
Thank you. That's really great news about those bond auction results. So that was 3.8% is the interest on those sold?
That's correct. That's correct.
And if I recall correctly, weren't you guys assuming somewhere like in the 4 to 5s?
Yes, I believe it was around 5% is what we were assuming.
Yeah, so great work. I'll note that follows our our 2 bond rating agencies. There was a sort of uncertainty about the second one having a slightly lower rating than our longstanding one, but I think it just reaffirms that what they're looking at is the quality of the total portfolio and what it's paying for, right? So good job. I wanted to make a comment that the presentation, the slides where you break out how you're paying for the bond, if you go back one more, this is excellent. I think this is a really good way to communicate not only what are we going to get for it, and $40 million in bond issuance to do this new garage, I think is a bargain, frankly, relative to what we've continuing to do. But it shows me what parts of the city pay for it, and I think that that's something that would very much like to see more of. Across the city. It kind of helps us with this other broader conversation about enterprise change. So I just want to say good work on that. I'm going to 100% support these revenue bonds. I've been to the garage. I've seen the work you guys do out there. Despite insufficient working conditions, I think are frankly, our city employees deserve better. So I'll stop talking so we can get to a vote.
Vice Chair.
2 quick questions, and the first is actually a question where my colleague made an assumption. I think you probably did the right thing, but I'll ask anyway. We had our first bond rating sale, that one you talked about previously, after we got that second, or our first bond sale rather, after we got that second rating. Are the changes that you saw reflective of the market, or is there anything that changed based on that second rating, either positively or negatively, that we should know about as we go into this next bond sale?
It was broader market dynamics. So just the treasury market interest rates decrease, and the municipal bond market follows that. So when we initially had the authorization approved, it was a different bond market at that point in time. So we saw improvement because of people anticipating that interest rates are going to be decreasing from the Federal Reserve. So investors anticipate that, and then interest rates drop. So it was broadly that. And then your second question on what we refer to as credit spreads. And we did not notice any sort of really meaningful impact to our credit spreads. So the idea for when we added the second credit rating was really to expand the investor pool. So simply, a lot of investors just can't buy bonds. They don't have 2 credit ratings. So by getting that second credit rating, we essentially expanded the investor pool and improved the marketability of the bonds.
We saw that in this last sale, or we haven't seen the effect yet?
Well, we didn't really see a significant impact of pricing. So we kind of priced where we expected to be, regardless of having the second credit rating. So because our credit quality is already so good, like we can't really get that much better. So I guess it's a better way of putting it.
Okay, thank you. And then tangentially related, I apologize, not related to the bond sale directly. Putting aside the costs of the debt service, once this new garage is built and it's a leased facility, what will our annual cost be for that lease and that facility compared to our cost of ownership at the current facility? Do you know that offhand, Maddie?
Our cost of ownership of the current compared to.
I'm wondering, as we think about total cost, benefit, deficit neutral for the city, what does this change mean?
Yeah, I don't know that I could answer that in specifics. We can get you the cost of the new facility and its annual run rate if you want. I think one of the challenges that we've had in communicating some of these trade-off choices is that when your current state is so dilapidated, you don't have an accurate assessment of what it should be. And in fact, we hear this in discussions quite often about internal service funds, and those rates are skyrocketing. Part of that is a rectification of the last 25 years of things not being done well. So I don't know that a cost benefit comparison is really valid, because right now, what we're doing is totally unacceptable. So, I think the better question is the base case workable? And if the base case isn't workable, you can't really create a comparison. Does that help?
It does. I think what I'd like to better understand is looking at cost of repairs, maintenance of the facility currently, and then the cost of the inefficiencies of our employees trying to operate in a facility that absolutely does not meet their needs. And the time that vehicles are offline because of that, all of those other pieces. Is there a number that we can think about as the cost for operation here, and how does that compare for the lease costs of the new facility? If that's something that you need to calculate and get to me, that's fine. I just would love to understand that as we move forward with this project.
Yeah, and it's a fair question, and I want to make sure we're just doing the right math. So I don't know that we could do an apples to apples of the facility costs because they're so different. But I do think we have a standing question right now as this moves forward, or appears to be moving forward, of the business's operating costs. So for example, when the bureaus procure units from us, they have a replacement fund cost, they have our maintenance and repair costs for those assets. I speculate that we have too many fleet vehicles because they can't be assured of getting them back in time. And you can see that in the utilization data for the fleet. So I think the fleet currently has a utilization data overall data point of like 31%. I think that's really low. Now, some of that might be the way they designed their operations in the field. So if they're not efficient, they're going to need more equipment to service a basic day's work than if they were efficient. So I don't know that Kirby accounts for all of that, but I do think that it accounts for some of that. And because they can't get vehicles back in time, I think they get a little nervous and then they buy another dump truck. And so that is only speculative on our part, but I do think as we move forward and we think about our operating model, we think about the garage service model and the impacts of that on efficiency, and we think about their operations, and if we're maximally efficient, what can they do? I would like to see utilization go up, and I would like to see that total cost maybe not come down, but as the city grows, at least level out. And so that is a speculative math on our part right now, but we can try to put numbers to that if you want, because I think it's a fair question. What we are seeing is just anecdotal, and but I think holistically as a city, we can become more efficient, and that is a core way to help control internal service costs.
Got it. Thank you for at least walking through some of that.
Yeah.
I think this is a project that hits fiscal responsibility, as you're pointing to, environmental sustainability. I know when I had the tour, seeing those electrical boxes and hearing your team talk about our inability to electrify our fleet given the limitations of that building was very impactful. And then also the support for workforce, both our internal workforce who really need a far better working facility, and also the commitment to using the Regional Workforce Equity Act and meeting both our labor and our training goals as a community through the construction of the new process, all really matter to me. It's great to see all of those combined here. One of the things that I've talked about a few times on this council is looking at our total borrowing limits and making sure that we're really cognizant of keeping a buffer there. And I know that that's something that has been calculated into our long-term look at our borrowing limits. This is a project that you've been working on for a long time, and I appreciate that we have been thinking about this in our total borrowing portfolio before you brought it to us. So thank you.
Well, Council President, I think, has committed to be here until it's paid off, and I've done the math. That's only 5 more elections for her since it's in her district. So I think you got to stick around a while there, Council President. Appreciate all this. Looking forward to when your staff starts talking about the back in my days stories when the floor wasn't flat. So to those who are working there now, I guess I say, hold on, we'll be there shortly. This is an interesting ownership model. Can you reiterate again the length of the lease in this situation and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the lease is an odd term. It's 23 years. The reason for that is we wanted to ensure that it was long enough to allow us to qualify for the tax-free bonds. And so we just said 20 plus a couple, and so that got us to 23. We did factor in 2 10-year extensions, and so it could be up to 43 years. In other words, the fixed investment that we're making could last 23 years, it could last 43 years, depending on what happens. The reason we took that approach is we had initially wanted to do a purpose-built facility. We felt that that was most appropriate and actually had a pretty similar NPV when you look at the total life of an asset. But that was substantially more expensive, and I would say that there are some broader land use challenges that we've chatted about in other forums that we need to figure out. So the facilities asset base is particularly disinvested in. It is one where many bureaus need to have large plots of land to do different things on. I would say Public Works is one of them. And until that problem gets sorted out, we did not want to be sinking a bunch of costs in something that might be in the wrong place or the wrong size or the wrong configuration. We have to maintain a 3-mile radius within PBOT, or that's what's ideal in order to service them, particularly for winter weather. And so within that radius of that Kirby Albina complex, really the only place to go is Swan Island. And so thus we found this facility. We got it for as long as we could that we thought it would be meaningful, but not so long that it's a sunk cost if we ultimately need to go somewhere else.
Great.
And so that was our focus.
23 plus 10 plus 10. Councilor Green commits to be through the length of those, so that's great. I appreciate that. I remember on the tour you mentioned that plus 10 plus 10. I thought that was important. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Thanks for that, colleagues. we can move, actually, excuse me, I think we may have do we have any public comments signed up for this?
No one signed up.
Okay, thanks. Colleagues, we can move into discussion, or I would entertain a motion to move it to the full council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilor Novick and motions, and Councilor Green seconds to the full council with recommendation and due pass. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Green?
Aye.
Pertogini?
Aye.
Novick?
Very heartfelt aye.
Zimmerman?
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 ayes. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. All right. With 10 minutes, we're going to call up the next item and take care of some land.
Item 4, authorize the city to acquire certain permanent and temporary property rights necessary for construction of the 3260 Southwest Upper Drive North to 3139 Southwest Upper Drive project through negotiation or the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Are you Ken?
I am.
All right, Ken, introduce yourself and take it away.
Good morning, Chair and council members. My name is Ken Ackerman. I am the interim chief engineer at the Water Bureau. And this is an ordinance to allow the Water Bureau to use eminent domain to acquire right-of-way for the purposes of constructing a water line.
Speak up just a little bit. That mic is mean to guests. It doesn't pick you up as well as you think.
Thank you. So next slide. So the main is, see if it switches. The main is located on the south side of Highway 26, about where the zoo is located. Doesn't actually access Highway 26, but it's located there. Next slide. So the main was built about 80 years ago. It's 2-inch galvanized main. They typically don't last this long, but it's worn out. The main was constructed in a private roadway without an easement at the time. So we plan on replacing that with about 590 feet of new ductile iron main, put in 1 new fire hydrant to serve the area, and bring the current services up to existing standards. Next slide. The roadway is very narrow. It doesn't meet any standards, but it's where they access. It's across private property. So it's very steep. We have modified our easements from our standards to fit within the existing pavement. So we're not impacting landscaping. We're not impacting structures that are within what would be our standard easement. Next slide. So we need to acquire, from 10 property owners, we need to acquire 14 permanent easements. 10 of those are for our water line, but we also have some access easements that go beyond that so we can actually get to our main if something would happen in the future. And then 5 temporary construction easements to facilitate the construction of the project. Next slide. So a mailer was sent to about 80 property owners, including the 10. We've talked to 9 of the property owners that will be directly impacted. They're generally in favor of this project. This is being done because we had a main break about 5 years ago. So they're aware that they would like to continue to get water served to them. They are aware that this is coming to council in a couple weeks. So we can go ahead and do the next slide. So we're seeking authority to initiate negotiations. And we don't believe that any of the property owners have any concerns about this, but we're doing eminent domain because we are dealing with 10 property owners and we want to be able to get this constructed next summer. So with that, if there's any questions.
Great. Thanks, Ken. I'm looking to my colleagues if there's any questions or comments. All right.
All right.
Any public comment?
No one signed up.
Okay, colleagues, I'll entertain a motion to send this to the full council with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Green, seconded by Vice Chair Pertogini. And with that, clerk, can you please call the roll?
Green?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Pertogini?
With the assumption that you stay until this project is done, as you've put on some of the rest of us, Councilor Zimmerman? Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
Zimmerman?
I think he said next summer is when this one starts.
This will be done next summer.
Yeah, so the voters will have a choice in that for me in the election season. I do vote aye, and thank you, Ken, for all your work.
Thank you.
All right, with 4-0, that does pass with a recommendation of full council. And with that, colleagues, I am going to make the announcement that we are going to consider the 3rd and also the 10th are currently scheduled for finance, given the point we made earlier, and more information to follow with that. And it is 1:55 in the afternoon, and we're adjourned.